I'm Bridget Whitney. I'm 32 years old. 3 years ago, my parents took their entire $500,000 retirement fund and handed it to my sister to finance her startup. They didn't ask my opinion, even though I was already a senior forensic accountant at a Fortune 500 firm. Instead, they sat me at the dinner table to take notes and learn from her. When I calmly pointed out obvious red flags in her projections, my mother cut me off immediately. Don't be jealous, Bridget. You just don't understand business. 3 years later, during Thanksgiving dinner, in front of 30 guests, FBI agents walked through our front door with handcuffs. And the first thing my sister screamed as they arrested her was, "This was Dad's idea." That moment didn't come out of nowhere. In my family, some daughters were born to shine, and some were born to clap. Growing up in the Whitney household, there were always two versions of daughterhood. Meredith, my older sister, was beautiful, magnetic, and naturally adored. When she entered a room, attention followed. I was the quiet one, the child reading in corners while Meredith sang or performed for relatives. I brought home perfect grades while everyone asked Meredith about auditions. I didn't hate her for it. I assumed this was normal. Some people were meant to be stars. Others were meant to sit in the audience. I truly understood my place at my high school graduation. I was valedictorian. I'd worked for years for that moment. When my name was called and I stood to speak, I scanned the crowd and saw 2 empty seats where my parents should have been. They arrived 20 minutes late, slipping into the back just as I finished. My mother's explanation came easily. Meredith had a callback for a commercial. They couldn't leave her alone. Meredith was 21. She had a car. Later, Mum adjusted my cap and told me I didn't need cheering because I was so independent. Meredith, she said, was sensitive. I smiled and nodded, convincing myself independence was a compliment. It took me years to realize it was just the label they used for the daughter they didn't prioritize. 12 years later, I had built a career I was proud of. I was a senior forensic accountant at one of Chicago's most respected firms, earning 6 figures and working cases involving the SEC and federal prosecutors. I helped uncover fraud schemes that made national news. None of it mattered at Sunday dinner. My father waved off my work as number stuff. Meredith, unemployed yet again, was praised for her vision. When I mentioned testifying in a federal fraud case, my mother smiled politely and said, "That's nice, honey, but you're still working for someone else." Meredith, they said, was destined to build something big. I watched her smile at me with that familiar mix of triumph and pity. The irony was cruel. The skills they dismissed were the same ones that would later expose everything. The family meeting happened on a Tuesday night. Meredith unveiled her startup pitch like a performance, complete with a logo and glossy slides. She announced projected revenues that made my stomach drop. $2 million in year 1, no product, no clients, no technical team. Then she revealed the truth. My parents were investing $500,000, their entire retirement. When I asked basic questions, burn rate, client acquisition, investor details, my parents shut me down. "We believe in her," they said. "Why can't you?" When I said the numbers didn't add up, my mother accused me of jealousy. I was told to apologize. I didn't. I hoped I was wrong. I wasn't. That night I sent a detailed email outlining every concern. I begged them to hire an independent auditor. I even offered to pay for it. 2 weeks later, My mother told me the money had already been transferred. Meredith needed it quickly. That was when I created a folder on my computer labeled with her company's name. Not to prove I was right later, but to remind myself that I had tried. A year passed, and the illusion grew. Meredith arrived at family events in a luxury car she claimed the company provided. Relatives praised her success. I saw through it instantly. Leased assets, rented spaces, staged confidence. When I overheard my parents discussing another $50,000 bridge loan, I added another note to my folder. The dominoes were stacking. I just didn't know when they'd fall. Eventually, I made a decision. I stopped intervening. I stopped warning. I told my parents I wouldn't contribute money or credibility to something I didn't believe in. From that moment, I began to disappear from the family. Invitations stopped. Group chats went quiet. Photos appeared online of gatherings I hadn't been told about. I wasn't just excluded. I was erased. 2 years after the investment, I received a call from my late grandfather's attorney. He told me Grandpa Harold had left a confidential supplement to his will. When the time was right, it was to be given to me. He left me the lake house, $800,000 in value, a place full of memories where I'd always felt seen. Grandpa had known exactly who I was and what I'd need when everything collapsed. Shortly after, I ran into an FBI agent I'd worked with on a previous case. She reminded me of something I already knew. Numbers don't lie forever. 3 years after my parents wrote that check, my mother invited me to Thanksgiving dinner. She insisted it was important. Meredith had an announcement. I went anyway, wearing a conservative dress and a hopeful heart I didn't want to admit I still had. I arrived early and was immediately handed an apron and put to work. Meredith descended the stairs later like a celebrity. Applause followed her. When my father toasted her success, he proudly announced that their $500,000 investment was paying off. Then he turned to me and joked about how I should learn from my sister instead of being a lifelong employee. 30 people laughed. I was standing by the wall when the doorbell rang. My mother opened the door to 2 FBI agents. They walked straight in, badges raised. They were looking for Meredith Whitney. She was arrested on the spot for wire fraud and securities fraud. As the room exploded in chaos, Meredith screamed through her tears. This was Dad's idea. She accused him of helping falsify reports. My mother fainted. My father tried to deny everything. 30 witnesses watched our family collapse in real time. An agent pulled me aside and told me quietly that I hadn't caused this. The investigation had started months earlier with external investors. My warnings, ignored for years, had been accurate. If my parents had listened, the damage might have stopped at $500,000. Instead, it grew into federal charges. After the guests fled, my father asked for my help. He wanted me to lie, to protect him. I refused. I told him the truth he had once taught me. Whitneys tell the truth. I walked out. In the weeks that followed, the consequences came fast. Meredith pleaded guilty and was sentenced to federal prison. My father accepted a plea deal and was banned from financial activity for life. Civil lawsuits wiped out what little my parents had left. They downsized into a small apartment and lost their social circle overnight. The same people who laughed at me vanished. I didn't celebrate. I rebuilt. I accepted a promotion. I restored my grandfather's lake house. I started therapy and learned that I'd spent my life seeking validation from people incapable of giving it. I learned that boundaries weren't cruelty. They were survival. Eventually, my mother called not for money, but to apologize. Not perfectly, not completely, but honestly. We started again, slowly, cautiously, with limits in place. Meredith and I met once in prison. For the first time, she admitted the truth. She wasn't a victim. She was just caught. Today, I sit on the dock at Lake Geneva, finally at peace. My life isn't a fairy tale. There was no dramatic redemption arc, just clarity. I have a career I earned, a home built on trust, and relationships grounded in truth. I love my family from a distance now. I no longer shrink to be tolerated. And if you see yourself in my story, the overlooked one, the truth teller, the invisible expertise, want you to know this. You are not jealous, broken, or wrong. You're just seeing clearly in a room that chose blindness. And eventually, reality always catches up.